Well, welcome to this BC Strategies podcast. We're going to do a deep dive into the recent WebexOne 2025 event. I'm Kevin Kieller. I'm going to moderate, and I've got with me three fantastic BC Strategies experts. But before I throw it over to one of them, I just want to start by saying, thank you to Ali and Sophie, the analyst relations team. I mean, they invite us, take good care of us, coordinate our schedules, and we really appreciate it. And the WebexOne event was fantastic. It was in San Diego, which is wonderful, and the analyst relations team did a great job of ensuring that there's good weather in San Diego. I mean, I feel like that they did a good job of picking a good location, right? And so, along with Aruna as well. So, and really the key thing for me, and I'll let the experts talk about the, kind of the announcements, and then of course, because I will moderate, and then I'll throw in my 2 cents. But the key thing for me was, access to the executives, right? Which is, Webex and the Cisco team is very open. You got, G2, Anurag, Aruna, Snora, Brian Stout, the whole group of executives. We have lots of great detailed small conversations, and then a whole bunch of one-on-ones. So there was a lot of announcements. There was a whole bunch of agents. There was a new Room OS, a bunch of AI quality management stuff in the contact center space, some real detail with relationship to the design elements. Just checking my notes here. There was integration that was talked about between Zoom and Microsoft Copilot. And so that's the high level. I will throw it over to you, David Danto. What did you take away? What did it mean? Kind of bring some context to WebexOne.
Well, I have a page of notes here from the things that I spoke about, and I'll definitely get into some of those points as we chat about them. But there were two things that really stood out to me. One in comparison to the earlier Zoomtopia event, and one in comparison to last year's WebexOne, which I was honored to be at. It's my first one. We were at an event in San Diego a week ago. All of the analysts, customers, executives, as you pointed out, Kevin, people learning and doing training, partners. It was an amazing opportunity for serendipity, for bumping into the halls, for tasting the dog food, for trying the gear, for going to a whisper suite, for play. Zoomtopia used to have that, and they've made a choice not to anymore, and the choice couldn't have been more stark in terms of what we got out of this conference versus what we got out of that one. And that's, I don't want to be negative about anything, so I'll be positive that it was a tremendous, valuable experience that I didn't see Zoomtopia live. I could watch it on replay anytime. I couldn't watch the experience I had at WebexOne on replay. You had to be there, and that was one of the major big things that came out at me. And I've written about that, and I'll be writing about that going forward, because it is, the serendipity part is really important. The other thing that was really interesting in comparing it to WebexOne last year, and again, these are none of my notes and none of the announcements, but from the point standpoint, is it was more real and it was more human. I remember Snora last year bouncing across the stage, demonstrating a board G2 and making the joke about G2 and listening to recordings of agents and how agents were going to talk. And there was all this demo stuff it was almost like a show. And while they did have demos this year and they did talk about features this year, it was more conversational. It was more reaching out to the people that were there and making human connections and making that key point that they made, which is, this is the last human-to-human event that we're going to have. It's now going to be humans to AI and AI to AI. And I felt that without the theatrics of the demonstrations and the dancing around the stage and the rest of it, it was actually more resonant. The message came across louder and clearer and better. So again, none of those are the things that they spoke about that I have a page of notes for. But I think those are my two biggest takeaways. That what an amazing event compared to one that really wasn't amazing, and what a big difference it was from the year before, where they really came in and made points and connected with the people and contrasted AI with people versus just making a people to people connection. What do you guys think? That was my big takeaway.
Yeah, so I appreciate the high level analysis, because I mean, like, there's lots of people that can just cover the news and the release, but I think it's like, what did it feel like and what does it mean? And I think you did a great job, David, kind of summarizing. I also felt that, like, the opportunity to talk to, the other analysts, or even to hear the questions that the other analyst asked. I mean, that's super valuable to me, because it's like, I'm like, oh, okay, that's their take on that. That's a different perspective. And so obviously, Cisco makes a huge investment in WebexOne. It's a beautiful location. The food is wonderful. The entertainment, there was Party Crashers, which was a fun party that Tom and I always enjoy, especially. There was Ryan Reynolds. So there was a huge investment. But I think, to your point, David Danto, I think the return on investment for doing the in-person event is orders of magnitude higher than trying to do something completely virtually. So I'm going to go to Tom Brannen, who he and I enjoyed the Party Crashers evening, as best we could, but along with all of the great announcements. So Tom, what was your takeaways from WebexOne this year?
Well, just to pick up on something that Danto just said, they are a collaboration company, and they talked about AI in terms of collaboration. So collaborating, humans collaborating with AI. And I like that terminology, because it makes that relationship a little bit more interesting, I guess, rather than just saying, well, it's an assistant or it's a tool. I really kind of like that. And I like that vision of building that collaboration. And they also dove pretty deep into the AI collaboration as being a critical part of their suite going forward, understanding that there's not going to be one AI to rule everything. So I really like that they took some time to explain how they're doing that. The other two things that kind of struck me, one is that, and this happens to me every year, and it's going to sound stupid when you hear it, but I forget that Cisco is a hardware company. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just so focused on cloud applications and CX and stuff that's mainly in the cloud that I kind of lose sight of some of the hardware and some of the value that comes with them being a hardware company. And, they really kind of painted that picture as well when they talked about doing AI, on the edge, in devices, rather than having it all go to the cloud. They had a great panel session with NVIDIA, kind of going through the details of their partnership and how they're leveraging those chips in their hardware to do some of this AI stuff. So I love, like, one of the things they announced was to be able to have AI suggest a poll during the call. So if it determined that a poll actually might be very useful to poll the participants, like, it could automatically generate that and pop up and say, hey, would you like me to create a poll? So there's two things about that. One is it's predictive, so it's not something you had to set up before the call. It's kind of on the fly, and it's kind of automating that. And again, that could be done on device, so you didn't have to set that up ahead of time. You didn't have to pull out your phone to do it. Like, it could be a room device where that AI is running to do that. So I thought that was really cool. And the final thing for me, and this is one that kind of clicked with me this year. As analysts, we get a little bit into feature comparison. And I focus a lot on the CX space. So I kind of, like, I'll compare them to NICE or Five9. And they come up short, obviously. They've been building a CX product from the ground up. They've made enormous progress, but those companies have been around for decades, building their solutions. But it kind of hit me this year that these large companies like Cisco, and Apple's the same way, Microsoft's the same way, they can play the long game, and they can make investments that will pay off down the road. And CX is a great example. Short term, they should have bought somebody. They should have bought a CCaaS company, folded it into their platform. but they're playing a longer game. They're playing, well, if we build our own, we can build it the way we want it, and it can be built with our security, from day one, and it can be integrated into our suite from day one, and we're not having to kind of take the round peg into a square hole kind of thing. And I think that's very interesting. There's no guarantee that that'll pay off. I mean, you still got to execute on the vision, but you start to see these pieces come together. And I think we've kind of seen this CCaaS, UCaaS, CPaaS integration story before, but it's never really taken off. And I think AI is kind of that secret ingredient, to steal a metaphor from the AI chefs that are here. But I think when you layer AI into this suite, and you've got all of these things not just kind of integrated, but natively tied together, I think in the long game that gets very, very interesting and very, very compelling. So I think this was the first year that I really kind of saw the promise of that, of what could be in the future with a fully integrated AI enabled suite. And so I thought that was very interesting. Something I definitely will be keeping my eye on in the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, that's great insight and analysis. I was super, I thought it was super cool that they did the quality management, their dashboard, kind of consolidated managing human agents and digital agents. I thought, there's been a lot of talk about every leader is going to have a human and a digital workforce, but really this AI quality management suite that Cisco has brought lets you manage both. And I thought that was really cool that they brought that together. And then, yes, to your point, Snorra did talk about the AI stew. So he borrowed some AI chef food analogies. You hit on the polling agent, which is one of the 5 agents that they introduced. But to talk in more detail, I mean, I know David Maldow, you liked all the agents. I mean, there was lots of things that you liked, but well, what did you take away?
Well, it's interesting. Usually when we talk about these events, we kind of do what Tom did, which is go over the announcements and give the analysis. But I first want to do what Dave did, which is talk about the event itself. So I want 2 bites at the apple.
Okay, there you go.
I do want to talk about the 5 agents and the other announcements, but I need to talk about the event itself. First of all, it's hard to believe it's only 3rd, because the logistics were flawless, and there's so much that can go wrong, and just little details. Last year, some of us were cold. This year, they had blankets on all the chairs. Elka had a blanket around her. She's always cold. I mean, little things like that. The pacing and the timing, the breaks, the amount of time we had to talk to each other. One thing, last year, some of us complained. We kind of saw the announcements on Analyst Day, and then saw the same announcements on the bigger hall on the event day, because they kind of, it felt like they were rehearsing on us. This year, I didn't feel that way. I felt like we had an analyst version on the Analyst Day, and it was a completely different presentation in the big hall. I don't feel like I got duplicated. So many things that could go wrong that they did so well. And I want to talk about the ROI, because this is an expensive event. Okay, they spend millions and millions of dollars. It's crazy. I don't want to know. It's not that I don't want to know. It really is crazy. But I do think the ROI is there. It's not just having us ask our smart questions in the sessions. It's not just videos like this, the coverage, which is nice and does help. But there's this, what I think, and no one talks about, the ROI, having the 4 of us, and they invited everyone. They invited all our friends, 20 of us, 30 of us, 40 of us, in between sessions, talking about things, in lunch, having drinks afterwards when we're loosening up. What are we talking about? We're not talking about my guitar stream. We're talking about Webex. And we're talking about what we think they should be doing. And we're the people who know, maybe not me in particular, but out of those 40 people, some of the brightest people in the space are spending 2 days all talking to each other about what's best for Webex, and then going back to Webex with it. That is incredible ROI. And you could say, it's not Webex's job, or it's Zoom's job, or anyone to put us all in a room together. Okay, fine. But we're not doing it ourselves. And when you put us in the room together, you get that kind of value. So I think whatever it cost, it was worth it. And the team did amazing. And you shouted out Allie and your team, and gets a special shout out for me, because she's my direct contact and she's awesome. So
I'll agree, Dave. I'll just agree with what you said, but something that Kevin said and something that you said about ROI that I would want to amplify and diverge just a little bit. Yes, Ryan Reynolds was there. Yes, it was in San Diego, which is a beautiful area. Yes, the hotel was enormous. I mean, the amount of, but you know what? If they held it in Cleveland or Lubbock, and they didn't have the movie star there, and we were all just staying in a Motel 6 and had the same event, it would still have the same ROI for me, because it's not just the opportunity to hear the presentations, it's the opportunity to ask the questions and hear the questions other people are asking and challenge them and say, you know what, that sounds like it's beautiful with unicorns and rainbows, but what about this? And you know, when you're doing that on a streamed event, there's a producer that's looking at that saying, "Oh, I'm not going to that question. Or, we're not going to that question."
Right.
You know, you don't have that ability to really have a human connection. So again, yes, it was beautiful. Yes, we love San Diego. Yes, I stayed there for 3 more days with my wife after we enjoyed it on our dime at a hotel. You would be stunned. You wake up on Wednesday morning and all the signage is gone. It's completely, or Thursday mornings, completely. You know, they spent overnight ripping that stuff down. It went from a Cisco hotel back to a Marriott. But yeah, it wasn't the cost and the location; it was the people.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to throw it. So they introduced these 5 agents. You know, analysts can be a little bit jaded when they did this, you know, there was some talk that, okay, well, they're playing catch up to Microsoft Copilot with the 4 million versions of Copilot that confuses the heck out of people, or Zoom AI Companion. At a high level, my thing is it's about the execution. So if, you know, and Anurag did a really interesting session talking about the receptionist agent, where he talked about bringing the latency down and how he decided to hold it back because the text to speech wasn't, you know, natural enough, and for a bunch of reasons. What did my fellow BCStrategies experts, what did you think about these, you know, agents announced for Webex Suite? Was this catch up? Was there, you know, I think, Tom, you called out the polling agent, which I think was creative and unique, but I'll go to you, Danto. Like, was this catch up? Was there anything new? What is the proof in the pudding? What do you think?
One of my favorite movies is Wag the Dog, Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman and a number of other people. And you know, it's you should, if you haven't seen it, you should go see it. But and without giving away too much of the movie, the idea is you can say anything. You can say, "Oh, you've got 17 agents. I've got 47 agents, and my agents are purple and they have unicorns on them." None of it matters. Last year at WebexOne, we saw a receptionist, an AI receptionist, which was speaking in plain English and understood its guardrails and everything else. And we haven't seen that. We haven't seen that in production. We didn't see that this year's WebexOne. So the announcements I thought were intelligible. I do think they were repetitive in that we've seen similar announcements from similar platforms. The proof's in the pudding. For me, the proof is when it's actually released to people. And, you know, you could talk about it in the context of RoomOS 26. That's one of the first operating systems that they've released for their gear that doesn't really have a new feature. It's there to bring everything forward. So as we go forward, we'll see whose Notetaker makes more sense. Will people actually take out their phones and put it on a table to record a conversation? Which one of us is going to be willing to give up our phone for the duration of the conversation to record it? But, you know, with Cisco's ability, you can now do that note-taking with a room system. So you don't have to give up your phone. So the agents themselves didn't impress me. This is going to sound counterintuitive, and I apologize. The lack of hype around the agents impressed me. They announced them, they showed them, they moved on. It wasn't an AI meeting. It was here are our new features meeting. And I like the machine learning better than any of the AI. I like their director mode, which wasn't on that slide, and It's built into their hardware. But, you know, you no longer have to pick, you know, speaker tracking or group framing. It's just, of course, it's looking at the whole room. It'll figure out the right thing to do. That kind of stuff impresses me. But again, when we see it.
Okay, so I'm going to go to you, Tom. I mean, so here we had these agents. Danto says the receptionist. I thought there was a big improvement. Last year was like a video recording of something. This year I used it to order a coffee, and I said I want a tall, whatever, non-fat latte, and it said we don't have sizes, and do you want it hot or cold? And quite frankly, I hadn't even thought about getting, because I don't get a lot of cold coffee. But anyway, so, and it did it, and it was on a noisy show floor, and to me, it worked flawlessly. And David Maldow was there, and he thought I was just talking to a person. So I don't know. What was your takeaway in terms of kind of some of these agents? Is it catch up, or was there something new, or is it still we're waiting to figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of waiting. Some of it's definitely catch up. I mean, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
But we're talking about months, or a year maybe in some cases. So it's not like decades or they're in AI years it's a lot, but in actual years it's not. But I think Dave Danto was right. Like there is a little bit. Does this stuff work? And like we've seen task schedulers. And in my experiences, none of them have been particularly accurate. They've missed.
Oh my God, Zoom tasks changed my life. Are you kidding me? Zoom tasks.
Yeah.
How did I live without it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a call for a different day, I guess. But but again, it's. I guess they all haven't worked. Maybe Zoom tasks works for you, but they all haven't been a success up to this point, or it reached a level of accuracy, with the exception of Zoom. We'll just say that. How about that? Is that better? Anyway, so the question is, does it perform? And then there's the question of, well, do I have to use tasks in WebEx app, or can I get them out of there? Because that's another thing. Like we don't want to necessarily. We may have a task management app that we already use, so
right.
And that hasn't been solved yet. So there's some of this that's still kind of, it's a little bit catch up, it's a little bit early stages, but it's stuff you've got to have. I mean, you've got to have these features as part of your modern collaboration suite. So if they execute on it and they work well, yeah, I mean this is really good. And one thing we've seen too is that the acceptance rate of people integrating these features is slow too. So like you could have had the best, meeting scheduler out there, but people weren't able to consume or adopt it yet. So now as they're getting to that stage, and again, I did kind of like the predictive nature of these things. I guess that was one of the things that stood out to me, is that it could say, hey, it sounds like I need to schedule a follow-up meeting with these people to talk about these topics. Do you want me to go ahead and check availability and schedule that meeting? I mean, that's the kind of innovation that I really like, because it's not something you have to invoke. It's not something you have to, a user has to figure out how to operate. It's just the AI, saying, oh, this sounds like you might need this. Can I help you do that? And I thought, that approach and that thinking and that level of not necessarily, because then you don't have to worry about adoption,
right.
Because it's gonna make itself adoptable by being proactive. So I think thinking at it or trying to solve these problems from that perspective, I think really is cool, and it's something that we need to see more of across the industry.
Well, hey, so I love the multiple perspectives. I love, Tom, that I was going to say you said predictive, but you meant proactive, but then you said proactive. So
well, it's a little bit of
it's predictive and proactive. So there
yes.
you go. You use both of the pro words. So okay, so great multiple perspectives. I love that. This wasn't. There was good and bad and salty.
Wait,
and
I don't get a turn.
No, but see, I'm setting you up, Mr. Maldow.
Oh, okay.
Someone has to get the last word.
Oh,
and so today that's going to be David Maldow. Bring us home, wrap up what everybody said, and put your own spin on WebexOne 2025.
First, just to amplify what Tom said, there were some unique things about the way, whether it's catch up or not, that Webex is doing this that was interesting and proactive. The meeting schedule in particular, we all have AI meeting schedulers. Check my calendar, check David's calendar, check Kevin's calendar. But this in the middle of a meeting, proactively, agentically, says, "Hey, this is something you're going to need to follow up on. You'll need to make a meeting for you." That I thought was pretty cool. And throughout, as far as the whole catch-up question, if they didn't give us stuff, we'd say, "Oh, they're not feature matching." And if they do give us the stuff, we say, "Oh, they're catching up." So I don't want to give them too hard of a time over that. But what I'm pleased about is they understand what agentic means. That word gets thrown around. It's as bad as hybrid. It's as bad as telepresence, right? It's as bad as AI, agentic. These 5 things, this is exactly what I think of when I think of agentic. There we go. Dave,
I don't know if anybody can see that, but there you go.
Yeah, we can be agentic.
It's just become almost meaningless, but it does have a meaning and it's powerful. And it's the way I like to use AI. I don't want just little task helpers and feature things. I want an agentic presence that does something discrete for me. So this task agent, that's exactly the way I want things to happen. And they're able to say, here are 5 agents. They'll all have understandable things that you can understand what they do and nice clean names. And you can say, oh, okay. Now I think it's some leadership in defining what agentic means, and hopefully everyone else will understand and fall in line.
Well, that's good. Okay, so this is like a bonus question for you, David Maldow. This was the Party Crashers. I know you have a guitar stream. How many years in the future until Tom and I get to be rocking out here with you on stage? I'm just saying, maybe that's the future. I don't know.
I'm not as good. Their guitarist was really, really good. He was playing some things that I'm just starting to work on. But we're ready. We could play some Green Day. We could do some easy stuff.
Well, there you go. I think, yeah. So that I love the wrap up. It was a great event. Thank you, David Danto. There's so many Davids. Thank you, David Danto, David Maldow, Dave Michaels, who's also a BCStrategies Experts. He wasn't able to join us. And then there's just people like Tom and I that have regular names that aren't David. Thank you for your insights and your analysis. And thank you very much for watching. And there's lots more info and analysis, on the BCStrategies website, bcstrategies.com, for all of the events and further articles and analysis related to WebexOne 2025. Thank you very much for joining. And until next time, take care.